Well, hello there, everyone. Here to talk to you about is like the study for the more coloring activity right here. As you see right here is like a sketch as I went ahead and drew right here of me, and I'll go ahead and be working right here. It's a dark orange type color, but basically, if most of us know what I'm talking about, what I talk about is like talk say with homework though is talk about say for study for the more, and I would have used for this title right here of a talk about with homework and maybe a homework for, page for the more or something like that. But on the other hand, to anybody probably think about, I'm like, yeah, and unless if most of us were to actually get on the computer, I'm sure like a lot of things I can maybe explain on the computer that I don't know if I would be able to explain within a matter of time. But anyway, but your hair right here is like a sketch right here I'm doing right here on paper, and a lot of my education, of course, came off of paper. By the way, some of it that did come off the computer, but on the other hand, that knowing about with anybody that would maybe think that a lot of the artwork that I've been doing, from over the years, and knowing about the for improvements and knowing about that you have right here is a sketch right here. It's like a me, and I'm using right here is a colored markers. It is, and I probably think about. I'm like, yeah, if I can use like other sources of drawing utensils, such as other art supplies, such as maybe crayons, and along with the paintbrush or stuff like that, but I go right there as orange, and then if I want to go ahead and add a little bit right here, a little bit of brown too as well, just to kind of add a little bit of brown, like say if I have brownish hair. But anyway, that you have it to where it's like for the study for the more, and basically talking about that if some of us or most of us that know about that whenever we're young, that a lot of times if we're in school that if we are going to be like say in maybe history class, or if it's going to be in like a social studies type class or English class or math class, any type of class like that, and if we were be doing say our homework, and a lot of times though that I can tell anybody here that if I was given homework, especially for taking care of a bill, or if it's anything to do with filing my taxes, whichever it is, that knowing about that, hey, I'm like that you still gotta turn this, and you still gotta do this, you gotta get that together, whichever it is, and a lot of times with most of the teachers, so that the teachers like, well, you got homework to do, stuff like that, and nowadays I tell anybody, well, luckily I have a computer at home, be like, but on the other hand too, that knowing about that, yeah, and then. With most kids, whoever that wants to know, like whenever they're going to school, if it's going to be it's any friends or whoever it is, grandkids that they need to realize also, knowing about with most of the time with education though, that if we take the time, and a lot of times even at home, that with most kids that they would probably say about, well, whenever they get a homework, then that sometimes most of the time that they would rather get on their smartphones and their e-readers, just to go ahead and watch a music video, watch any type of music video, or if it's anything related to anything that's going to be such as maybe listening to the radio or watching TV. Like that, I can tell anybody here a number of things that, of course, talk about, like, yeah, that. The things that I did whenever I was younger, knowing about, whenever I had homework to do, almost everybody's going to have homework to, like really, you call it as like, for study for the more, if it's anything related to the study about, anything that's related to maybe taking care of a bill, or how much money that you have left to work with, on the pocketbook, or if it's anything to do with, what you got to take care of, to like say a job application. A lot of times they probably say about most of the time it's like through an application that they want you to study, and they quiz you, or and a lot of it it could be medical papers. I can tell anybody here it could be credit card payments or medical papers. This type of stuff that a lot of the things that we do nowadays, and a lot of it which I don't know if I can really explain on this picture here. I actually sketched this, but a lot of the information, I'm sure it's going to take a lot more than an hour to explain it all. But basically that the stuff that more likely that we do on our say on our daily task of talking about the things that we need to do, such as turning something in, completing something, finishing something, et cetera, et cetera. And I went ahead and drew this right here. This right here is like, say, a paper, and I can, I can tell anybody here, I actually knew a few people who actually tried to do their homework on the school bus. If most of us have tried that before, which I'm sure that they say it's quite a bit hard to do because while the bus was moving, that they were trying to write something down and the bus would go boom, 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 boom. But other than that, that you have right here is what I have in my hand right here. I went ahead and sketched. It's like this is from one of those old photos that I had. Say from the family collection of mine, and basically that you see right here is that knowing about with the photo that and I actually think that I don't know if that was a page that was related to the fact about that day of absence or anything like that, but anyway, what you have right here is you got right here of me, if I were to be holding like a form that would be like some sort of homework assignment or anything like that, anything that's done on the computer, anything that's handwritten, stuff like that, if it's math homework, that we could probably say if I for the study for the more. Basically talking about is like for whichever it is, that more likely though that it's to be done at home. And anybody maybe think about, like, that whenever we do homework, a lot of times we wonder, though, that, what are we learning? Talk about that the way that you learned at home may be totally different from what you were doing at school or at work. And a lot of times, it seems that way. Whenever you spend at least 3 hours studying, and then by the time you take the test, it seems like just everything's just so totally different. And I could tell anybody here, if I were to put on my old glasses, it's like talking about everything just so totally different. Because, the vision's changed, and a lot of times that with anybody would maybe think that hey, I'm like, really, that's the whole part about school, ain't it? About knowing about if a lot of things that more likely that may change that we may not know about it. Just like maybe a few things maybe have changed, but on your hand, that knowing about that, besides say the temperature, on the temperature right here, it says maybe 72 degrees, and maybe by 12 or 1 o'clock Central Time, it could be maybe 80 degrees, maybe 79 degrees, something like that. But anyway, but a lot of times, like between temperature change and knowing about it, it's like if we do our homework though. A lot of times, anybody that may say that that whenever we do our homework, that a lot of times that they say that whenever you do it at home, whenever you go home, a lot of times that talk about whenever you do stuff at home, it just seems like everything's just so totally different. Can you really bring your office or your classroom home with you? Am I talking about if you have something such as like something that's on a graphic calculator, anything that you're doing at school, you work hard at home, and then you bring something into school, and then it may be a little bit different from what you were working on at home, and then they're like, oh well, I still failed the test, whichever it is. But anyway, but anybody may think about, I'm like, that it may seem that way a lot of times, that if we take an exam and we don't do very well on the exam. And a lot of times, though, that with most kids, that they could probably say that they studied hard, and knowing about that really, I don't know, is that all true of knowing about that they'll fail you just because you get a number of answers wrong? And I'm thinking, though, that that may all depend on the teacher, but on the other hand, too, that they may say that we won't exactly fail you just like that, just knowing about that if you spend the extra time just to kind of study. I'm like talking about that they may also be grading you about that, knowing about how much time that you spent the course of, let's just say that nowadays with most community colleges and of course online colleges and then other sources, other schools, that they may say that they give you at least 2 hours to take a certain test, or maybe 1 hour, or maybe a half an hour, or something like that, just to take an exam or a test. And for the most part, that if we're going to be taking a test, that they usually say, and I can tell anybody here that I don't recommend anybody. I'm like that you may feel like cheating at least once. It's like, yeah, well, what happens? I'm like that if I cheat on my test at least one time, my parents are not going to find out. My teacher's never going to find out because I had a study note. They told me that I could not use notes, and I had a little note carrier next to my desk, so I went ahead and used it, and I went ahead and wrote down the answers, looking at the notes or something like that. But anybody may think about, I'm like, yeah, that they say that for the most part, if we were to tell anybody besides our kids, though, by talking about, it's like that, if something's that hard to the point where that they say that are you allowed to cheat at least once, and more likely they say that no, like just like maybe we say with the map testing that you are not, you can't cheat once, and they say that it's better to go ahead and answer the question at the best of your knowledge other than to cheat, because it's possible you can lose more points if you're caught cheating. So I can tell anybody here that one time I was not caught, but one time I was caught, and I don't know if they took off any points. It was for a spelling test, actually. I can tell anybody here it was related to a spelling test. And if I can remember right, that I think that they took off some points, I think, because I was sneaking right behind the teacher trying to correct something that was a word that was misspelt, something like that, and she moved the paper. She was like, "Matt, get me over there." So I can remember that at one time I wanted to be sneaky, and I kind of like the teacher was doing something, writing something on the chalkboard, and I kind of snuck around, tried to change the answers real quick, like, oh no, you give me the paper. I'm putting the paper right here. Don't change anything. But anyway, anybody could probably say it. But if they remember, there is a certain time from if they ever cheated at one time, just because they wanted, they think that they deserved more time to answer something, or to maybe spell something, or maybe if they just wanted to, just to see them, like if they're going to get caught, doing, like caught cheating, whichever it is. But anyway, what you have right here is a sketch right here of me, and let's just say that for the study for the more, and like talking about, it's already see here 9 a.m. and around a time that around this time on a Tuesday, for Tuesday morning for March the 24th, and anybody that may say about if it's going to be between the second grade and maybe in college, or whichever time it is that especially whenever the finals come up, if we're going to have like homework to do. And a lot of times that I can tell anybody here, I was not that type of person who want to do homework. I may have said it maybe over 1,000 times. I am not the type of person who wants to do homework, and I'm not the type of person who likes, and I'm kind of like that person who takes time. Well, I'll do it during study hall class, or I'll do it after class, whichever it is. But just knowing about, really, if we can maybe think about, it's like for the study for the more, of knowing about if there's a chance that we may get a better percentage, like so far as if we see more points, if we see more grade point averages coming to our grade report, maybe if we spend more equal time and more study time, more effort, just in class. And we may not see this more study, we may not see this more this and more that, but on the other hand too, that knowing about that that at some point, really that maybe depend on the of course on the schools and then how what they think about it. But on the hand too, for study for the more, I'm talking about is like if we're going to have homework to do, and like I said before, like nowadays, since if they got some students that ask you to get on Google, it's like for Google, and I can tell anybody here that I can maybe do some practice, of course, on the thing, but on my Nook, or if it on the e-reader, or if it's anything that's on based on the computer, that but on the other hand too, I'm sure that can, that will probably take up more time as well. But then that more time, they say that a lot of times that anybody probably say about if you really want to study about how to do something, then maybe that you would probably say that yep, that more likely in order to be able to get to step 1 through 8, you just got to first start out with say for that first step, and that one, you say it's like for 1 through 8, and it could be step for step 1. I'm knowing about that. Yeah, that you make sure that you that the connections are good standing, and then they usually say it to where it's a type in on the search bar, and a lot of times the search bars are usually like www slash, you say right here for slash, HTTP. It's like so for hyper typo prompto page link. I think that's for HTTP, and then along with that, it's like for Google. And a lot of times anybody may think I'm like yeah, that with Google, if it's going to be like any type of Google search, such as google.com, or if it's Google, the Google Paint library, or if it's any other type of a Google page, or if maybe Yahoo or SBN, SBNstudyroom.com or something like that. But on the other hand, knowing about our education, of anybody probably say, I'm like, yeah, I can go ahead and draw right here. I have an example right here. Go ahead and draw. I usually say, for planet Earth, because I'm like, yeah, that doing some practice with like some 3D dimensional type practicing, and I can go ahead and a lot of times, though, anybody probably say, if most of us were to complete, like would say, is a FAFSA application, for financial aid, or if it's anything to do with, you say, any type of student loan, or if it's anything to do with any type of research, homework, especially on our own home PCs, a lot of times, that knowing about a lot of the things that we learn, and basically that knowing about, besides, for copyright, though, is that knowing about that, with the type of things that we learn about so far technology, and then researching it is, and you say surfing the web, stuff like that. And a lot of times with our homework, that we may say that it takes so much time to where we don't even want to spend any longer than 10 minutes on it, stuff like that. But I can tell anybody here that nowadays with technology, that they have it to where that if a kid can get on get on an internet site, such as maybe to watch TV, or if it's to get on the Facebook page, stuff like that, that more likely to know about that, yeah, that to use that, just to be able to look up words about your assignment. And a lot of times anybody probably saying about between what you call the electronic book bag, that we may think about the type of book bag that we use for school, and that the type of school, it's like for our homework, though, that they didn't have all that stuff that they have back then like they do now. And anybody probably think about, like, yeah, besides say maybe the boogie board, or if it's any type of writing, digital electronic reader, stuff like that. But anyway, I got right here these new art supplies, and basically, like say with the 2B pencil, and I can go ahead and do like some sketches right here. It's like if I would actually have done some writing, on the paper, though. And let's just say that if there was some writing done on the paper, and if this was my homework, though, and I'm not really writing anything, I'm just doing, like we say, some line sketching right here, some graph lining practice. But let's just say if there was writing about right here in between these lines. Like anybody would probably think about, if they were to do homework, that a lot of times that they would not even want to sit, in front of you, say a piece of notebook paper, like this right here, just to write down a few math questions or anything like that. Anybody would probably say, Mike, well, I don't do homework, I don't read books. I probably told about a number of things whenever I was in school, though. That whenever I was in school, I probably said a number of things. That I don't read, I don't write. Like, and well, I guess, do I need to call your parents to So I had a teacher that even said that one time. I talk about, yeah, do I need to call your parents up here and tell them to come up here and tell you that you need to do your work? You need to do your work. But you need to answer your questions. But anyway, But I could advise anybody here that knowing about, to try to study hard and don't cheat. If you're not exactly sure what the answer is just ask for assistance. And I'm sure they say that if you do run out of time, that I'm sure that there is a reasonable answer other than the fact about that knowing about that you cheated. Well, you're going to have to retake the test, whichever it is. But anyway, let's just say this right here. This right here is a charcoal pencil right here. But let's just say this right here was an example right here of my homework. And I could tell anybody here that one of the reasons, of course, the truth of the matter is that I was in a special needs class for one of those reasons of knowing about with the fact about that, hey, that they gave you homework like maybe once a week, something like that, maybe every 2 times a week, something like that. That a lot of times that they would give you homework to do, and a lot of times I'm like, well, I'll just go ahead and move to special needs classes, and if anything that you only had like maybe homework once a week, something like that. But then of course that they gave you like maybe 10 days or something like that, just to do it, or every once in a while that they will let you do it in the classroom, stuff like that. And a lot of times, though, that anybody probably think about that's really what study hall is all about, huh? Like if it's a resource, or if it's academic block, for like stuff like they have like say for study periods to where students can actually come in and actually do so, have more time to where they can do their get the assistance that they need. But I could tell anybody here that assistance nowadays, like what they have inside the classrooms, though, that they usually say that they have like say like tutors that they usually say that have somebody that they actually get connected to online, and then they actually have it to where they can take control of the keyboard and mouse. You say on your computer, on your device, what you're on, and they actually show you what you need to do, and if you have any questions about anything. And like with most students, that they could probably say about compared to the old days, like knowing about if you would have somebody they would help you a lot of times, and a lot of times it seems like you would if you have any questions, ask somebody, and a lot of times you just don't want to ask anybody. I'm in school. I'm in school just because I told I had to be here, stuff like that, or I had to do this. But more likely, okay, well, I'm in study hall now, stuff like that. But I'm sure most of us have had our experience with our stories about what our excuse was whenever we were in school, though. But on the bottom line, though, is that knowing about that we can also understand, though, that it's like for the study for the more. I'm talking about whenever we're kids, we want to think about more likely about having fun and maybe thinking about our own superhero. I'll go ahead and draw right here of see here of it. So maybe use a little bit of charcoal for the outline, but I'll go ahead and draw right here. If I had like say a superhero, it's like that I at one time I can tell anybody here in the 5th grade I can remember that I told somebody that they asked, what do you want to be whenever you grow up? And I think I may have said once that superhero, but I think my answer is that I want to be a superhero designer. I want to be a comic book person to where is to create your own superhero and actually draw like designs for for who they are, with what their certain powers are. And that right there is done, say, with charcoal, and I'll go ahead and do right here is like the 2B pencil, and go ahead and shade just a little bit right there, and go ahead and maybe draw, let's say, a little bit of the legs right there. Draw a little bit of the legs right there, is like if they would be standing, but and then draw here is the shoes. But let's just say this like a superhero, like that type of superhero I was talking about, would more likely be, go ahead and do right here is the black, but this type of superhero I can maybe think about is like polyngenia or something like that. Polyngenia. I can maybe go ahead and use like would say for polyngenia. Polyngenia. And the polyngenia. Polyngenia or somebody like that. Polyngenia. And with polyngenia of talking about right here is that knowing about with polyngenia is that he's a type of a person to where he can actually go ahead and add right here's a little bit of blue, but or it could be maybe a superhero that starts with an M or something like that. But let's just say they have like here is like a uniform right here to wear like a suit, like that where with can he fly? Can he fly? And of course, can he transform his side? Can he expand his arms or something like that? And I can tell anybody here with this type of superhero, like with anybody, any type of superhero that knowing about is like if we call it like we say it's for pay our dues of knowing about a lot of the things that we may come up with that knowing about is for the study for the more. I talk about we may find out about what the superhero does later on if we were to take the time to do our homework and turn our work in, stuff like that. And a lot of times with anybody probably think about, I'm like, yeah, you want to be what you call this the superhero writer, somebody like that, and knowing about polyngenia, or that Malacolby, the Malacolby. I can go ahead and maybe write that down too. The Malacolby. And like with anybody that may say about that, that they don't do superhero, type of riddles or riddles or anything like that. But anybody knowing about the polygyby is basically the one with that with the arms right here. Go ahead and draw. Say the arms like maybe like Mr. Stretchy. If most of us have remember that Mr. Stretchy has it to where he's got these powers that he has in his arms to where that he can actually have it to where he can change. Maybe I was thinking about that the type of a superhero that flies, maybe like Superman, to where that but on the other hand too that where he has what you call extra strength and he can actually transform and maybe to make himself bigger and maybe to disarm say any the bad guys, whichever it is. But anyway. But that was pretty much in the 5th grade. Whenever I can remember, whenever I said that to somebody's like knowing about that to be a superhero, huh? Like, well, you're a superhero, comic book writer, that type of person. But anyway, Malacolby or the polyngenia, those type of say comic book characters. But anyway, that you have right there is like say a superhero right there, and if anybody else want to take a close look at that right there, it's like say for a superhero. But anyway, talk about it's like for homework though, and then talk about if I do like say eraser, it's like do like say that a lot of people probably think about with most of the time with the eraser, it's there to remove any type of a sketching, but on the other hand too, it kind of blends in the colors a little bit. I usually think that I thought that one time that this color was just made up. I thought one time that besides that color, I thought that trick was all just what I made up. But then they said that no, in our class, if you use the eraser, that you can actually blend a little bit of the blending of say the stroke. It's like if they call it say the stroke or the shades of blends, with the using just the black and white. It is, and you do all kinds of sketches. It is with that, but that they have right here is like say a book bag and then just to make this a little bit shorter too. That knowing about for the study for the more, it's possible that we could probably see that. The time that we spend using that it's like for our education. I can tell anybody here that knowing about maybe one of the worst mistakes that we can maybe make while we are studying, of course, of knowing about that if we're going to be studying, if we're going to be in school studying, knowing about if we choose not to do our work, then it's possible that knowing about that not only is that going to maybe reflect your grade, but just knowing about we won't know what to teach you. Maybe if you don't concentrate on your work, but knowing about the stuff that you learn in school, and like with anybody that I say about that, homework may not be for everybody, and which I really don't blame them. Knowing about I'm sure that there's probably a lot of things in life that we may not want to do, such as vacuuming the floors or cleaning the chimney, or if it's dusting the car, dusting the lamps, or if it's cleaning the carpets, taking out the trash, stuff like that. But on the other hand, too, that knowing about one of those important tasks could be, it's like talking about, it's like what I usually say is like that knowing about that, was it done by you or was it done by this somebody else? And a lot of times anybody probably say about it would maybe be nice to have somebody else do the work for us, but on the hand too, that knowing about it's possible if we do it ourselves. If we try it, and it's possible that we may know about the whole meaning for which call, study for the more. I'm talking about that if we were to actually try it out ourselves, and if we were to do it, just like you're signing and you're putting our name. I'm talking about right here, like putting our name right there. And I'll go ahead and write right here too. Just like for Matt, like talking about here, if I would actually do it myself, and it's possible that that there is a channel like, well, you may learn just a little bit more if you would actually try it. And like with anybody that may say about, yeah, that all depends, huh? I'm like, yeah, so far as adjusting the clocks. I'm like, what do we learn whenever we adjust the clocks, huh? Whenever we do the math problems, 8 times 5 and 5 divided by, types of work like that. What do we usually learn whenever we what do we usually learn whenever we do that stuff? And at the time, we may wonder, I'm like, I don't even think I did it right. I might talk about you filed your taxes or anything like that. Draw a star right here, put a star, and I know a lot of times my teachers usually put smiley faces or stars on my classwork if I got in a certain percentage, like maybe a 92% or maybe a 97, maybe 100%, or maybe an 85%, something like that on my schoolwork. And anybody probably think I'm like that, yeah, that they would put like a sticker on there, a smiley face sticker, and I have some of that schoolwork, by the way, and I'm like, yeah, that, but it seems like everything, by the time we get into college, it seems like everything's just so totally different from what we learned. But on the other hand, too, that knowing about, I guess what they really are asking for most students to do is to take more time, of course, in the classroom, that they got that. Hell, it's like if you need help, you ask them for help. But on the other hand, too, that knowing about is to know about, that with most parents would probably say that you're the one, you're paying for the courses, so you need to do what you gotta do, take care of your responsibilities, show up for class, and write down notes what you gotta do. But on the other hand, too, that knowing about, we could probably think about that the whole part about the whole reason about study for the more. There may be more things that we may know about maybe the universe and about the world it is, of talking about the things that about technology that we learn, but knowing about I a lot of times that used to always think that if I could maybe memorize maybe every city or state or something like that, maybe everything, try to memorize everything, if I were to do my homework and maybe memorize every car model there is out there or every computer make. I don't know. I've heard of like Toshiba and other types of computer related products, but if I were to try to study every color, besides chocolate first, the color I give for chocolate first, but let's just say if I were to study like for every color or study for every number, I might talk about, if anybody will probably think about, like, yeah, I can go ahead and use right here and say with my favorite colors and along with black as well, go ahead and use right here, number 4. With number 4 that we may think about, 4 is 4. 4 seems like a big number, but then if you go ahead and add another 4 right behind there, and then the number could possibly get bigger. And knowing about, the number could possibly get bigger, and then from there, and go ahead and put another 4 right there. Let's see here, 4, and then maybe along with 0, 0, 0. So stuff like that, like and memorize that every number of what's bigger than maybe 4,000. What's bigger than 40? 4 trillion, 4 billion. Stuff like that. But on the other hand, knowing about the things that more likely to be able to study about is knowing about is like to take the extra time. Of course, it's to study. And the way I think about it, though, is that knowing about that take that time to do our work, and more likely, I'm sure that they say it's either if it's considered paying our dues, or if it's all about like everybody probably say about the truth of the matter is knowing about how important it is. How important it is to learn some of the stuff that we learn in school. And knowing about that, I'm sure we'll find answers to a lot of our questions. Knowing about that really. Like, how did I do that? Or, stuff like that. And like anybody would probably say about that, if I can go ahead and use a color right here, I'm like, that if I went ahead and use a circle, but let's just say if I were to use it, say, as a square, and I don't know if there's a planet, a square shape or anything like that out there, but go ahead and use a square, and if we were to do this like maybe like on Photoshop or Illustrator, and talk about like try to draw a square, and sometimes anybody probably think I'm like, that's especially using the direct select tool and then other tools that are related to Photoshop, that a lot of times we probably think I'm like, learning how to draw the shapes, especially for like graphic designing, and along with if it's web designing or any particular purpose like that, of talking about that stuff that is quite a bit complicated, but on the other hand, the way they say, I'm like, whenever the more complicated it gets, then the more that students, anybody's not going to want to mess with it after a while. But on the other hand, too, knowing about the best of ways of how to get them maybe more interesting, getting it a little bit more exciting, maybe is to pick up maybe the one favorite part of one favorite activity to look forward to whenever you're learning something about what you gotta do, of knowing about if you can actually draw stars and draw shapes, like with anybody probably think I'm like, that like especially with the 2B pencil, go ahead and draw right here as a star right here, and a lot of times you do a star, and from there I'm like, make sure it's not crooked either, but you got right there is the star, but star right there, and then from there go ahead and if I want to go ahead and add maybe see here, I can go ahead and use the blue right here. Like, really, how many stars? How many stars are like see, add star right there? Yeah, exactly. I'm like, that's a star, but I'm like, I think it has like 4 or 5 sides or something like that, to it. But anyway, but there we are. It's like talk about there, for the study for more of knowing about the things that the important reasons for why we do our homework. And anybody may think that whenever we are given homework to do, it just seems like that you're given more work for the student, and more work may mean that I'm like, that you got homework to do, so that means that whenever you're home, and I can tell anybody here that whenever I do my studies at home, it just seems like everything is just so totally different compared to in the classroom. And what is that reason? And some students that may say that that's all about because you're not doing it right, but on the other hand, that they may say that it is a little bit different, and more likely though, I guess that just means that they basically testing you. It's like it's basically a test. Is that Tom, with most tests and exams, that a lot of times that they usually say that between tests and exams, that a lot of times, so that they say that maybe not everything is going to be the same compared to what you studied and what you learned, but then on your hand too, that knowing about is like the amount of time I've talked about here, been working on this for about 20 minutes now, and anybody may say that hey, like for 20 minutes, 20 minutes, that more likely, what can that buy you if like compared to going to the candy store or the grocery store, spending 20 minutes there, maybe spending a paycheck if we got paid today, you know, going out shopping, spending 20 minutes to do shopping, or if you would rather, you know, spend 20 minutes maybe finding those pair of glasses, or maybe to find that perfect calculator, or if it's 20 minutes spent in the classroom. I'm sure for a whole part of purpose about for the study for the more, I talk about that it's possible that we may show some pretty good progress. You know, for the more, it's like for the study, for the more coloring activity. Well, hello everyone, and the top right here is like for the study for the more. I'm talking about, you know, the important reasons to why we need to study. And like with anybody would probably think about, I'm like, yeah, you come home with a grade report. It is that you may show, you know, a certain, you know, say, you know, from the degree decreasing, of course, increasing of the scores it is. And we may think about, though, that it's like for the study for the more. I'll talk about, you know, the important reasons to why it's like, you know, is to think about, you know, each time we get homework, that more likely it may seem like they're, you know, giving you more work to do, even whenever you're at home, even whenever you are on break or on, you know, say on spring break or anything like that, cycle break, whichever it is. And a lot of times, though, that they may say that they give you more work, but then on your hand too, so far for study for the more. I talk about it's possible that we may see more progress and maybe more increases, say, on our scores if we more likely use like to pay attention to, say, to our work it is, and knowing about it's like so for testing about, you know, for your knowledge, of course, for what you learned and what you know. Talk about for study for more. Talk about, you know, the important reasons, of course, say, for our education. All of us, and thanks for watching.